Welcome, everybody. Hello, good evening. I'm going to call the February 21st meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We're very excited to see so many people here and interested in all of us approving our minutes, I'm sure. But we're very happy to be hosting the Regional Planning Commission and Stantec here to talk about a potential connection. We have a couple of items on the agenda to go through first. I think we should maybe just start with some quick introductions. My name is Susan. I'm currently serving as chair of the Planning Commission.
I'm Sarah McLeod. I'm the clerk of the Planning Commission.
Eric Glittman, member of the Planning Commission.
Sorry, I was saving you for last because you're like
The pro.
Linda Blash, town planner. Sabina Ernst, member of the Planning Commission.
Yes, Linda is our town planner, so she is an employee of the town, and we are very lucky to have her serving us here. And I think I'll wait till your presentation begins and let you introduce yourself as well.
Heidi as well.
Heidi, yes. Thank you.
Yes, hi folks, this is Heidi Klein. I'm also a member of the Planning Commission, and I'm sorry that I'm not able to be with you in person. Thank you.
We have two other members of the Planning Commission. One might join this evening, and one we know won't be able to join us this evening. So the first item on the agenda is public comment. So just to explain, we always have a time on our agenda for public comment, which is generally for items that are not on the agenda. So if there's something you'd like to share with the Planning Commission that is not directly related to tonight's agenda, we have time on the agenda for that. And we ask that you keep your comments brief and focused to under 3 minutes. And we will first hear from people in the room, and then we'll hear from people online. For people online, if you would please make sure that you sign in using the chat function so that we can record that you participated in the meeting. And if you wouldn't mind using the raise hand function, which is part of the reactions button on Zoom on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, to let us know that you want to share a comment with us. And for people in the room, I would just make sure that you've signed in, if not on your way in, at least on your way out. And if you have a public comment to share, we ask that you come up and use the microphone that's here at the table right there, the hot seat, and just let us know who you are before you make your comment. So with that, I will invite if anyone has any public comments or any items to share with the Planning Commission not on tonight's agenda. First in the room. Anybody? Okay, how about anybody online? Okay, so then I'll close topic number 3, and topic number 4 is to approve the Planning Commission minutes of February 7th. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Eric, thank you. Is Nancy, our secretary, online? I didn't actually see.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
Sabina, second. Any clarifications or corrections to the minutes? Okay. Approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Heidi?
Aye.
Okay. Good to go. All right. So now for the main event, I'm sure this is why most people are here. We have been undertaking a scoping study to look at the possibility of connecting 2 of our 3 village centers. Jericho Corners, where the elementary school is. It's currently served by a sidewalk, and the sidewalk ends a bit past the elementary school towards Browns River Middle School, towards Mills Riverside Park, where sidewalk picks up again. Before we all served on the Planning Commission in around 2017, the town investigated the possibility of this connection and whether or not that was a path or a sidewalk, and developed some basic plans for that connection, and had some obstacles based on a variety of situations and was not able to proceed or pursue the project to any detailed extent. We are a relatively new planning commission, although most of us have now been serving on the planning commission for at least 3 years. And we are extremely motivated to improve walkability, bikeability in town. We hear from residents at various meetings and various projects. It's very consistent that there's a lot of enthusiasm among residents who really want the facilities to be improved. 2 summers ago, we visited each village center on foot and we hosted walking tours and bikeability, walkability connections, especially school to school connections, were high priorities on the part of many residents that we've heard from. So with the support of the select board and with the support of the regional planning commission, who really is responsible for the regional transportation network, our planning commission applied to receive assistance from the regional planning commission and resurface the project. And just because it didn't happen yet doesn't mean we can't make it happen at some point in the future. So we have been working on this project for a couple of months, and this is our first real exploration of the topic with residents, with the public, and also it's the first time that we've worked together, although we've been working online and on Zoom and so forth for a couple of months. So with that set up, I will turn it over to our guests.
Thank you. I'll kick it off a little bit, but I think you said pretty much everything that I probably was going to say, but I'll just introduce myself. My name is Christine Ford. I'm a transportation planner with the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. I think if people aren't familiar with the Regional Planning Commission, there are all the regions in the state have RPCs, and we do land use and transportation planning. What makes us a little bit different in Chittenden County is we're also a metropolitan planning organization, which just means that we get money from the federal government to do planning studies. And so that's what's funding this project. We have an annual request for planning studies. Jericho applied for funding. And so we hired Stantec. Stantec was under contract to us, but we're working closely with the town on this project. We already talked about the limits of it. And I won't take your thunder and say what it's going to be about, but I'll just let Stantec folks. We have one Eric on the line, I believe, and a couple here with me, and they're going to do a presentation. We're really looking for your comments on this, and yeah, go ahead with that.
That sounds great. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Susan. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. As mentioned, Eric Alling is online. He's a project manager for this project. I'm Sean Neely. This is Harrison Lucas. We're both project engineers on this project. And this is a continuation of previous work that was done back in 2017 to look at possible alternatives for making pedestrian and bicycle connections between those two areas of the community. And so far we've been taking what work has been done previously, adding to the existing information and data. And we'll talk a little bit about the agenda tonight and what we're going to get into. Harrison.
You can advance the slide.
We hope. It wouldn't be complete without technical difficulties.
All right, so during this presentation, we're going to review the project area that was mentioned in the 2017 previous scoping study. We will go over the typical process for a scoping study for a shared use path, and we'll cover the existing public infrastructure in the area for pedestrians and bicyclists. After that, we will open the floor to you for comment on the project, and then we will conclude with the next steps as we go forward with this project study. Next slide.
That should work, right? What I'm doing,
On that screen.
I'm just trying to use the arrow buttons.
Yeah,
But-
should right page down. Yep.
Alright. How'd you guys work before? I don't know, it's good. Can't put the mouse back in for the drive. All right. There we go. That's it. Yeah, but do I have to do it? I have to share it again.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Sorry, everyone.
Isn't it down in the bottom corner, in the bottom right corner?
Do you see those tiny gray
Bottom-
buttons?
bottom left.
Flat bottom.
Left, sorry.
Tiny gray buttons.
Oh, maybe not.
Okay.
No.
Tails,
Yeah, but so now I need to get back. Can you minimize that for a second? Oh, there's John.
John, you can sit up here if you want. You can join the celebrity. panel.
Oh,
Only if you can help with the
okay.
TV challenges, yeah. Technology is great when it works.
Yeah.
You would think everyone's trying to be so good at it.
Presenter mode, which is, yeah, and
So that's very
cross your fingers. All right,
wait for it.
okay, so these guys are just gonna see the other thing, and I
Okay.
think we're okay now.
All right,
Sorry
excellent.
about that.
Thank you for being patient.
So up on the presentation, you'll see the study area that was from the previous scoping study. And the study area spans from in the bottom left-hand corner, the Jericho Elementary School by Griswold Street and Silly Hill Road. And then you can also see where Packard Road, Brown's Trace intersect with Route 15, and then it ends in the top right corner up by Riverside and the middle school up there. And next slide.
So this project now is part of what we refer to as the project definition phase, where we identify and evaluate alternatives to make sure that they meet what we call the purpose and need of the project, which we'll discuss in a moment. We look at any possible impacts of the alternatives, impacts to the natural environment, to cultural resources, to private properties, and as well as cost and constructability of the projects in order to prepare it in order to search for funding or to get funding for the project, at which point it will go into the engineering phase, design and plan development in order to be built. Next slide.
If I could interrupt for just one sec, there's a hand up from Pat Bird, and as someone who's viewing online, I'll have you know that we're seeing
Yeah,
not
we're
only your screen, but the next animation also, which
Yes,
might be, which is making it hard for folks online to see.
Well,
Yeah, they just need to pay attention to the big screen,
Just
not the little one.
follow the big box and not the little box.
The reason my hand is up is that the big box online is not very big. So when you're showing a map, it's very difficult to see. The
How's
slide
that?
that you have up right now is great, but the map that you had up is much more difficult to figure out what you're trying to say.
There will be some additional maps that might clarify. It might be easier to view for viewers online. So maybe we can see if those will help to clarify.
And if you're on Zoom and there's a line between the panel of viewers and the slideshow, and if you slide over to squeeze the little thumbnails until they're very small, you can enlarge what you're seeing on the Zoom which might help. I don't know, but it might help. Sorry.
You go to the next slide.
Yep, you can advance.
And yeah, again, I guess that was a dynamic slide. Okay, so here we have showing the project schedule. So at task 1, that's been the last few months where we have been reviewing the previous work that has been done, including the previous scoping study. We've gathered additional, more up-to-date existing information and have been working with the RPC and the town to get ready for the next parts of this. So tonight we're at task 2, the local public concerns meeting, where we are really here, to give a little bit of this background information, but what we're really here for is to listen to you, to hear any input that you have, any concerns that you may have, any interests or thoughts about some of the important components and your priorities for this project. And so in a few moments, that's when we're going to open it up, and we're glad to have such a good showing tonight, both in person and online. After this evening, we will do some additional outreach to stakeholders, including different town departments, members of the Agency of Transportation, including the District 5, which maintains this portion of Route 15, as well as any property owners that would be potentially impacted by this project. After that, we will dig into the alternatives, and we'll describe some of them in a moment, but we will be evaluating those alternatives to see how well they meet what we refer to as the purpose and the need for this project, which we'll review in a moment, as well as comparing the different impacts, comparing the different costs and the constructability to choose the best preferred alternative. We'll also prepare the draft scoping report, and then we'll get to a point where we'll be able to present the alternatives to the public and seek endorsement for what will be referred to as the municipally preferred alternative. Thank you. Next slide.
So getting into the existing infrastructure, in yellow on the bottom left and top right corners, you can see the existing sidewalk. And you can see that there's a large gap in the accessible infrastructure for cyclists and walkers. And this gap goes from Griswold Street in the bottom left up to Mills Riverside Park in the top right. As you can also see, there are bus stops with small icons by either of these sidewalks in the bottom left and top right. But this is not a very accessible area to walkers or bikers. There is also a small shoulder on Route 15, but it's only about 3 feet wide, which is not very accessible to all ages and abilities for cyclists. Especially for the portion that is 50 miles an hour, which is about from Raceway Road in the middle of the screen up to the bridge, which is crossing right over by Brown's Trace Road. And that's about it for that. Next slide.
So here we have a lot of text on the screen. I'm not going to read it all, but this is what we refer to as a draft, or as the purpose and need. This was developed during the earlier work done on this project a few years back. I'll read the purpose and some of the highlights identified in the needs. So the purpose of the study is to construct improvements that increase the safety and mobility of pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users along this corridor, regardless of their age and level of ability, and also to encourage the use of non-motorized modes of transportation. Some of the needs include there's land uses in the corridor that provide origins and destinations, but they don't have multimodal linkages. They're primarily accessible, by automobile, and less able to be accessed by pedestrians and bicyclists of varying levels of ability. There is a lack of pedestrian connectivity along 15. There are experienced bicyclists that ride along Route 15, and there are some shoulders that they make use of. However, these shoulders are not adequate for providing safe and comfortable bicycle and pedestrian routes for the ranges of ages and skill levels for the Jericho cycling and walking population. Part of the area is rural with speed limit of 50 miles per hour. And so there's also, in those areas, there's less driver expectation for dealing with bicycles and pedestrians. Previous work done in Jericho with a program known as Safe Routes to Schools identified several areas with less comfortable, less safe conditions within the project area, including a lack of marked crosswalks, lack of adequate warning systems for some of those existing crossings that are out there. There was also a survey conducted in 2015 by the Regional Planning Commission that indicated that most respondents do desire improved bicycle and pedestrian conditions throughout the town, which was reinforced by what we heard from Susan earlier. Next slide, please.
All right, and now we'll get into our alternatives. This is the first of the two alternatives. This would be a shared use path along Route 15, going from Griswold Street up to that Mills Riverside Park. And it would connect the existing portions of sidewalk. In the bottom of the screen, you'll see two different typical sections. The one on the left indicates a sidewalk alternative that will be used for a portion of the project. And then the bottom right is a shared use path, which will vary between 8 and 10 feet, depending on how much room there is due to properties or right-of-way constraints. All segments will be connected with marked crosswalks, and this alternative is a much safer route for pedestrians and bicyclists to connect to residences and businesses in the area. And will also make it more safe and predictable and comfortable for them to use it. We will be narrowing the roadways to 11 feet and adding a foot of shoulder width to make bicyclists more comfortable for on-road cycling. And hopefully this will reduce the pedestrian and car conflicts. And you can go to the next slide.
So this is the second of two alternatives that are being dug into more deeply that were initially developed as part of that previous study back in 2017. And so this one is an off-road or a cross-country alternative, which would basically generally follow the old railway alignment, and that old railway alignment is approximately shown here on the map in yellow. So that would be the starting point. We understand that portions of that old railroad alignment have been maintained for pedestrian use, are used by residents currently, and so that would be the starting point for this alignment and this alternative. Portions that would be adjusted and changed from what is shown here would be around the crossing of Raceway Road, particularly just to the east of Raceway Road. You can see there's a bend or an oxtail in Browns River there, and so that's where the old railroad was. But it's not such an ideal place to run a path through now with the dynamic nature of the river. And so that portion would likely we would likely assess a more southerly link in that area to stay away from some of those portions. And then it would follow along and it would meet back up with Route 15 around Riverside. And basically, I'm kind of going backwards here, but it would start off of Silly Hill Road, where existing path is. Something to keep in mind is that that in the past, all of that railroad right of way was transferred to private property. And so this alternative would require impacts across all of the private properties that it crosses. Thank you. Next slide. And one more thing, sorry, I'll back it up. So in the lower right-hand corner, yeah, we see the existing picture there of the starting area there by Silly Hill Road. But then to the right is the typical section, which would be a 10-foot shared use path. And I will also mention that there are quite a number of wetland areas that this would cross, and so that would have to be evaluated, and those impacts would have to be assessed. Thank you. So now we get to the main event, why we're really here, and that is to receive your input. We really want to hear from anybody and everybody that has something to share with us. Our project manager is online and he's going to be recording all of your input, and we're going to be reviewing it and considering it as we continue developing this project. So, we want to hear from you about what you find important about this, what you feel would be most important to include in the project, any concerns of any of the alternatives or the project in general, any issues that you know of or are considering, possible solutions, maybe, something that we haven't mentioned here. Some of these, ideas are up here, but we want to hear anything that you have to share with us. So safety, experience by pedestrians, cyclists, school children, automobile travel, congestion, transit operations, land use issues. So with that,
Let's go bring it back to Susan to
Yeah.
facilitate the comment if you're done.
yes, please, thank you.
Okay,
Does that good?
thank you very much.
Sure.
To reassure people, it's not one and done. This isn't their only chance. If they go home and think of something, we can receive more comments. We're at the early stages of the project, not the bitter end of the project.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Very helpful. I think, so are people comfortable if we don't keep this on the screen so that we can see our Zoom neighbors? Okay, so maybe since the first public comment, I invited people in the room first. I'm going to invite public comment from people online first for a few people, and then maybe we'll switch a little bit back and forth. So we have a lot of people here. We're so excited. Thank you for coming. Please keep your comments brief. I don't want to have to use a timer, but I will use a timer to make it fair and to give everybody an equal shot. But remember that this isn't the only shot. So we're just trying to resurface the online. So if you're an online person on Zoom and you want to get in the queue, if you would use your reactions button on the lower right-hand part of your Zoom tray and use the raise hand function so that we know that you're interested to make a comment.
Yeah.
So we're just waiting 1 second here to get the screen displayed.
Okay, there are, hold on, yep. Stay tuned, tech issues, just a second. There we go, okay.
Okay,
That's where we want it.
so Joanna Weinstock, good evening, welcome. You can unmute yourself, and if you're not speaking, if you would please stay muted.
Thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to address a couple of issues. Safety, first of all. In 1986, my husband, who was an experienced biker, was biking right in the area we're talking about on Route 15 when he was hit by a distracted driver in a car and his leg was amputated. They did manage to reattach it. He went on to join an initial committee led by Jerry Brown over 30 years ago that was trying to build a bike path. At that time, everyone knew about Stowe. Stowe was the first bike path, I think, maybe in Vermont. And it got an award. President George H.W. Bush was, when he was president, in his inaugural address, he said something about 1,000 points of light. And the Stowe bike path got one of those awards for it being 1,000 point of light. So what I remember is that property owners were totally, some of them were totally outspokenly against it, and nothing came of it. So here we are again, more than 30 years later. I think what I've observed, I have a camp in Colchester and I have family living in New Hampshire, and the bike paths that go through Colchester and New Hampshire are very popular with local people. I'm not aware of, initially people were leery about it, especially the ones in Colchester, but I think they're happy with it now. So I realized that getting property owners on board may be hard. I really favor the idea of using the old rail bed because I still think it's just not as safe to be along Route 15, plus the noise. And people who live in the community would probably much more enjoy walking along in the natural area where the rail bed is than along the highway. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you guys okay? Okay. No.
Heidi, since you're a planning commission member, you have the right to just say what you need to say.
Actually, wait, Heidi, I saw your question, and actually I would prefer to defer your question if you don't mind.
Oh, I think that it's totally fine. I was thinking it would be something that the consultants or the planners could just take back with them.
Yeah, okay. Colleen Conti. And Joanna, you could take your hand
got it.
down. Okay.
I was just curious about option number 2 and the property owners. Which property owners is it? The map was not at all clear to tell me what property you're running across in that section of second option.
Sure, that's a great question. And I'll say that, because where we are in the initial stages of developing that alternative, it's not set what properties it will cross. However, we do have an initial list. I don't have it in front of me, but whatever properties are identified during the development of the alternative, those property owners will be reached out to directly for their input and for discussion. And so that's not something that is set yet, but that would be forthcoming.
May I ask a planning commission question? Yeah. From your experience, what is the typical compensation for a property owner based upon, should that be used this way? Fair market value by linear foot, or what's usually that calculation? How is it done? And it's okay if you don't know the answer.
Yeah, to be honest.
Sean, do you want me to take this one?
Yes, please, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any right-of-way impacts go through the Uniform Act, which is a federal program that's been around for a long time. The rates are all calculated. There's a spreadsheet, but yes, it is based on fair market value. And it also, there's a lot of other factors into it. The square footage of impact, and that square footage compared to the overall parcel plays in as well. So, a larger impact on a smaller parcel generally compensates more than impact on a larger parcel, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Sure.
Kelly Evans. Kelly, if you're talking, we can't
She's
hear you.
unmuted, so we should be able to
She is
hear her.
unmuted, but we can't hear you.
She can always type something in the chat.
Yep. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Is anybody else online wish to raise your hand? I'll come back to online after maybe we take a turn in the room also. Okay, let's go to people in the room. Hi, come on forward if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm Tom Liberty. I'm from Bittersweet Lane. Kelly is my neighbor, so I can kind of speak for her.
Okay,
I walk the rail trail every day, so I'm very familiar with it. Our neighborhood had the erosion problem on the Browns River, so we had to have our riverbank repaired. I sent, you had your email on the Front Porch Forum. I sent you some pictures in the email. Looking at down the rail trail towards where it continues, where the erosion was. Basically, the rail trail is gone for probably 150 feet. It's been repaired, but where you would have to go around to make a trail is actually going to be on our property and really close to our mound systems. So I'm not sure of the liability. We tried to work with the town prior. I tried to get on the rails of the trails committee. They know about it. I'm not sure if they talked to you or you guys are aware of the erosion problem. Have you been there?
That's helpful information.
I invited the trail people to come down. I said, you need, because they were like,
On behalf of the Trails Committee, because I'm the liaison. to the
Okay.
committee, they are aware. We have not interfaced with this group at all
Right.
yet. They haven't gone that deep.
so Steve Schwartz, who
He's right there.
okay,
Fine.
I responded. He didn't respond to me. I said, you need to come down as a committee and look at this trail because now it's missing. And there's really no way around it without building some sort of bridge. The government was involved and they said, basically, there isn't going to be any development going across that area because of the way it is. So I'd really like, before you get too far involved with this rail trail, to come down and actually look, and maybe you guys have a solution, but right now, from what we've heard, it's basically dead. So I'd hate to have you guys spend a ton of time. We do maintain it. We maintain it. It's like 3/4 of a mile. We mow it. We cut the brush back to keep it viable for the people that are actually still on the trail. But I'd really like everybody to go down and actually take a look before they make all sorts of plans, because it seems like a lot of people want to make plans for that trail without actually going and looking at it.
I will say that is on our plan, on our schedule to get a walkthrough along all of that with the Trails Committee.
Okay.
And
We were on board with, we were definitely on board before the erosion issue with, working with the town or whatever, but the erosion problem had to get dealt with and nobody seemed interested in doing anything at the time. So, but I would like everybody to come down. I'd like to hear your ideas of what could be done.
Sure.
We still wouldn't mind, we want to work with the town, but also we don't want to impact the neighborhood. Because we do live there.
Sure. Yeah.
But I would like everybody to come down.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe.
So I'm Joe Flynn. I live on Route 15, 272 Route 15. You might want to take note of that house.
Yep.
I'm the closest house on Route 15 on that whole stretch.
Mhm.
I have 17 feet between the edge of pavement and my front door. So a couple things I wanted to ask about and so on, or just for your information. Route 15 in that section is a 3-rod right away.
Mhm.
So proposing this makes it really tight, especially if you've got the section for an 8-foot path. Green belt with a 50-foot speed limit picks up a lot of space without even going into grading plans on the way we chase stuff, on the way up to chase stuff back.
Mhm.
Did I hear correctly? You were considering 11-foot lanes?
I believe that's a consideration for the travel lanes, yeah,
Okay,
And that was from the previous scoping study.
okay.
which is consistent with V-Trans policy. Yeah.
Understood,
Mhm.
but also keep in mind that at 5 a.m, MBI starts running trucks through there at 5
Mhm.
o'clock in the morning,
Yep.
and they're doing 50.
Yep.
So we're pushing them together quite a bit now.
Mhm.
And I appreciate you opening the door for other considerations. Can we go to the plan real quick for the back up and show the old railroad grade real quick.
So I think it'd be probably number 9, slide 9.
Yeah, and then I just have to get it onto the Zoom.
The questions I have are in regards to this is utilizing some of the railroad grade, but then in order to try to stay away from the river issues, is why are we looking and coming up onto Raceway Road? Why isn't that an option? We have a 35-mile-per-hour road. It's the same width as Route 15, but once you lower that speed limit, you have the separation between the path and the road become less because of safety issues. At Raceway, I know it's a sensitive topic about paving, but if you were to pave it, you might be able to do a nice multimodal path with just a line stripe instead of having all kind of barriers in there. And once you crest the hill from the new bridge, it's a real community area. You look like it's all small town. People walk their dogs there. So by maybe looking at that option, you know, heading down the railroad grade and then jumping up on the Raceway and chasing Raceway out, because it also dumps out where there's already crosswalks and so on. It's not a bad option. And I think we alleviate some of the river crossing problem. So again, I just wanted to bring up close to my house is really close. The width of Route 15 and another option.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. You in the back, yes, please. Oh, sorry, I meant I pointed to the woman next to you.
Here? Okay.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tom Lockwood. I am the vice president of the Snowmobile Club in Essex. I am also the person who stakes the trails through Jericho. And I have a question. Are you aware that the rail trail you're talking about was part of our snowmobile trail until the problem with the washout occurred? And is there any consideration about if you open up that section, would we be allowed to use snowmobiles on that? We've been doing this for probably 20 years. And this has kind of come as a surprise to myself.
Okay.
I'm struggling to keep the trails open through Jericho now. So I just want to see if you guys could take that into consideration. You know, if you take a look at the Memorial Valley Rail Trail, it's a multi-use trail that goes across the whole state. It's used by everybody for everything and seems to be working out really well. So just want to throw that out there.
Sure. Thank you
Okay.
very much. That's very
Thanks.
helpful.
Thank you. Come on down.
My name is Sarah McCracken. I just moved here less than 2 years ago. My husband and I were discussing the accessibility. We both support that. However, we would not have purchased property with our, like, basically, I think it's about an acre. That's going to be along 15. We wouldn't have purchased property if we would have known there was a trail or sidewalk being put on it. We would have chosen something else. But I think the idea is great, and we both agree that really our only issue is we're not going to have as much privacy. And so we would prefer if there were like privacy bushes or trees put along our property. Another concern is we sort of have a ravine. So the way the sound of the highway, the roadway, it echoes into our home in the morning. Like someone else said, the trucks go by, they're very fast. We're both concerned for people's safety. And South Main is right across like a chiropractor's office. There's sort of a dip, and I have another neighbor who we discussed. It sort of messes with people's depth perception when it comes to braking to turn onto South Main. So sometimes we do hear like quick breaks. And so my husband and I have a concern that with the speed limit and that slight dip that might be an accident area. And we would I would hate to witness that back there. And so, but we both said we would also prefer, like someone else said, if it's through the railway just because it's more scenic, and then you have the sidewalk, and then you have the option to go that way. I feel like a lot of people love Vermont for the outdoors. So to be in the woods away from the sound of the highway, I think is just wonderful. But if there was somebody that had accessibility issues, of course, it might be more challenging for them to maybe put a wheelchair through that area. So basically those were our concerns. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
very much. Yes, sir. Yeah, let's switch back.
My name is Niels Reinhardt. I live on Route 15. So we've heard a number of people to talk about the issue of speed. I mean, is there any? I don't know how VTrans does speed limits, but is there any plan to, if you were to put the trail along Route 15, the road, is there any plan to put a curb there? Because a curb would do an enormous, to slow down cars. Because I mean, the speed limit says 50, but I think that we can all attest that that's oftentimes at best, yeah, exactly. They do, and especially when they come up going east, they tend to like hit the gas because they see on that bend, they see a straightaway and they just slam on the gas. And so I think both, I didn't see any plans for a curb in what you were showing there, but I think a curb would do a lot both for safety and also to slow down cars and trucks and so on. And I don't know how it happens, but is there any way to get it slowed down? I don't know what the density is, what the threshold is that would need to be there along the road, but to have it down to 35, and I remember asking our representative about that once when we first moved here, and he said that it would irritate the people who have to drive from Underhill and Cambridge and so on. I was like, well, they moved there, I didn't, so I mean, I think, but so speed and a curb, and the fact that those two are there any plans for a curb? I mean, is that what?
So I'll speak a little bit to that. So for the curb, we'd have to dig into it. Generally one of the considerations would be drainage and how that drainage is being taken care of. And so I think, or I believe I recall from the previous study that so far in most of the area there was not a curb that was proposed. Right. That can be considered. For an area that has the speed limit posted at 50 miles per hour, a curb being installed for that purpose might be a tough sell to VTrans. But that's a consideration. And there's also other ways of approaching those speeding issues. And in terms of the speed limit itself, that would be part of a larger conversation with VTrans as they do own the road. There was a speed study done previously. And if I recall correctly, their measurement wasn't showing the speeds, the magic number is the 85th percentile of speeds in a speed study. And if I recall correctly, that was not indicating higher, pushing the speed limit higher, and it also wasn't indicating pushing the speed limit lower. When we're looking at different road segments and we're considering whether or not a lower speed limit would be appropriate, there's different ways of looking at it. And in order to slow vehicles, it's really about the design of the roadway and less about the posted speed limit. Because if the speed limit, if the posted speed limit is reduced, but the design of the roadway remains the same, it's not going to reduce speeds. Right. And so that would be a larger conversation, but it's also something that is, part of the consideration of this study of looking at, that overall relationship between speeds and different users of the roadway. So your comments are helpful, and that can help us as we dig into this further. But yes, that would be part of a larger conversation with V-Trans. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna switch back to the online people for a few turns. Kirk.
Good evening, folks. My name's Kirk Bordeaux. I live in the Riverside area. Can you all hear me?
Perfectly, yeah.
Good. And my mom lives on Route 15 and has had for nearly 50 years now. And her house is in that area between the corners in Riverside. So her personal concerns are additional traffic of pedestrians by her home. She's 80 and lives alone. And so she has some fear about lots of people, walking up and down the road. So you need to understand, we both support being able to connect the two areas, and we like the idea of using the rail bed. In particular, I like Joe's idea of jumping up on the raceway, and then you can avoid some of the river issues on that side. Has anyone also thought that, particularly along Route 15, Vermont Gas and Champlain Water District have all their utilities running along Route 15 right there? And that additionally installing a path might actually cover those utilities. And I think Joe also mentioned that at some point along Route 15 or points along Route 15 where there's some commercial zoning, that V-Trans reserves the right to potentially install a third lane for either turning and crossing the main road or bypassing turning traffic. So just some thoughts there. But I have to tell you, I support the idea of the railroad bed before 15. I think, like your first online speaker indicated, I think 15 is kind of a dangerous place to have a lot of bikers and pedestrians, particularly children, one school to the next. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
I can speak just to one of Kirk's questions about utilities, and that is certainly one of the considerations of this project, looking at impacts to those utilities. We are in conversations with the different utility owners and providers, and that would be part of the evaluation of impacts for any of the alternatives.
Okay, Ann and Dave Clift.
This is Dave Cliff speaking. I want to piggyback on the comments about using the rail trail and address the situation where the river has encroached in this gentleman's property and taken out portion of the rail trail. At that point, it looks to me, by looking at Google Maps that I have here, that if we were to extend a pedestrian bridge across the Browns River, take that approach on the other side of the river, which would then drop us right off on Raceway Road and continue up there just before Foothills Drive comes into Raceway Road. And I think that what was discussed earlier about going on to Raceway Road makes a lot of sense. My wife and I live on Pinehurst Drive, and to get down to Riverside, we use Raceway Road all the time biking, and find that it's very satisfactory with the car traffic that gets on it now. So, this particular solution would eliminate a lot of the other potential Browns River crossings and put it on an area that's already satisfactory.
Okay, thank you. Pete Kirsten.
Hi, folks. First, I really appreciate the conversation. It's interesting to hear that it's been going for 30 years now. So I applaud you guys in picking up the torch, and I hope we can get it addressed. I'm curious about the context, and so I think this is a question for the planning committee more than for the consultants. I know some of the conversation has been about connecting the high school to Route 15, and connecting all three town centers. And so I think that those other plans that may be coming in the future could really shape the literal path. Should it be along Route 15 so it's easily accessible to the high school, or does it make sense to push it a little further back so it's a little more quieter and safer. So I'd be interested to hear about that.
You bring up a really good point, and if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe address that toward the end of the conversation as part of a conclusion.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Colleen, you already spoke, so you asked a quick question, I understand, so I'm gonna come back to you, and then I'm gonna come back to the room. Okay, so Colleen.
I just wanted to piggyback onto the Raceway Road concept. So Raceway Road is already used by many, many people as a walking path. If we pave it, you're going to divert Route 15 traffic onto Raceway Road so people can take a little bit of shorter route. So I would very much be opposed to the path being diverted if we are thinking about paving Raceway Road. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, back to the room. Yes, sir.
Ben Cohen, the other Ben Cohen. Anyway, so I live on 15, and kind of right past Met's Wax and Wash. And I used to live right over here, across from Snowflake. My wife is born and raised here, and she walked the railway growing up as a kid. I'm from California. I'm used to roads and sidewalks and stuff. And we went to school in Savannah, Georgia, which is a walking city. All of this weight is because I live here. I can't walk anywhere in a natural way. I have to plan to be a walker. I have to plan to be somebody who's exercising. I'm sorry, that's just not my mindset. So it would be nice to be able to leave my house or have a reason to leave and then to go to a place. I'd love to be able to walk all the way to the market and walk back. That would be fantastic. We have a 15-year-old. We are aging out of the question of the school, but I know for a fact it would be much better to have kids, especially siblings, being able to walk each other to school or meeting and halfway or whatever it is. I don't think you should change Raceway though. I agree with that point. And I can understand people being upset about the idea of people walking past their house on 15. And as I get older, drive slower and slower in the 50-mile-per-hour zone because it's not very long. It should be 35 to 35 all the way through there. And that's what I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. How about here in the room? Wow, that's a lot of people. Okay, yes, the woman on the second row. Oh, you're coming up together. Perfect. I wish I knew everybody's name, and it's so nice to see so many people where you see your names around and then you see the person in person. It's great.
So I'm Robert Shantz. This is my wife, Mary Jo. And we live on the corner of Silly Hill and Route 15, which is the starting point, I believe, of this rail trail that you're proposing. And a couple of issues with our property. It's very wet at that point where it would have to start. And we have 3 solar panels that we put up about 2 years ago. And
Right
if
at the bottom
right
of
at
the
the bottom of
pasture.
our field, yeah.
The other
behind our
thing
barn.
is our leach field is in that bottom corner. And we have a replacement septic midway between the barn and the boundary line. And so I just, I'm all about, I grew up on that rail trail. I grew up here and I've, seen how things have gone over the years. There is a drainage ditch between 2 properties. Either way, we're going to be impacted, whether it's the front of the house or the back end. But there is a drainage ditch between the two properties where I think you guys are talking about coming in, which is the beginning, you know, what's left. It's where the railroad bed starts again, because it's been taken out right back, you know, all the way into Jericho. And, you know, I don't know, if you fill that in and you have culverts and everything else, maybe, you know, down through there. But it's still, you know, the whole thing about that whole erosion. There's nothing, you'd have to go way around into that new development's property and all of that. So, it's a problem, although Rob had an idea and, you know, I think that Davises are trying to convert their land to land trust, which I know those woods, because I ski back there all winter long, and there would be a way using, if you could come along from Silly Hill further in along a field, you can, and there's a little knoll, and then it's still wet in one area, but then you come back through the trees, you know, but you still have to negotiate
You'd end up on Raceway Road.
the erosion. And even I've tried to bushwhack it, and I asked Dean if it was okay if we went through his land to see if we could get to the trails at Riverside Park or whatever. And that's really difficult too, because you still have to cross Route 15.
So
It's really,
I have a comment about the sidewalk. Have you decided whether it's going to be on the north or the south side of 15? If it was to
It's
come to
not
fruition.
set. The previous study focused on the south side alternative.
The south side. Because most of the businesses are actually on the other side. And, you know, as far as people walking to like the dollar store or the food truck or wherever, that would make more sense. It'd be less crossing of Route 15. And it seems like every time you put a crosswalk up, it impacts traffic on 15. People have to stop, and there's already, you know, when I moved here, there were no lights. Now there's a lot of lights. But anyway, just food for thought.
Sure, I appreciate it. And, you know, right now we're in the information stage, you know, we're collecting input. And, you know, I will say typically at a local concerns meeting like this, we don't even share alternatives yet. This is a little bit of a different situation because of the nature of how this project has developed over the years. And, you know, we're taking this work and moving it forward. And so we're starting with these two alternatives. But right now, you know, we're still here to listen to all of your input, and, you know, these haven't been set or determined yet.
And I used to live on the other side of the bridge from, if you go down Silly Hill, that second bridge where the little waterfall is. Used to live down there, and I've watched Browns River take out huge amounts of riverbank, and I've watched where this erosion has occurred like over the last 20 years, and it's still moving down. And
what I've
towards the rail
noticed
trail.
is not only where it's obvious, you know, at the end of that bittersweet lane, I guess, but if where Gary's land is, when I have tried to ski back in there, I can't even ski. You can't get around it anymore. And the river is coming in, I mean, by 20 feet a year, it has eroded further, you know, coming back on the other side of the Hemlock, on the Gary's side of the railroad tracks. There's a little bit of woods. And what used to be pasture is now, the river is right there and keeping coming. So it's a problem with that.
Thank you.
One thing that I'd like to add to this too, just is that these guys aren't deciding. They're helping you have this conversation. So just to keep that in mind. I mean, this is all your project and we're here to help you.
Okay, I'm gonna go to somebody online, Mark Shan.
Yes, hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just wanted to say, I'm on 18 Snowflake, but I just want to say, in my opinion, Route 15 seems a little tight and dangerous for the project, but Route 15 alone, I think should be made safer. And I guess probably another discussion, but just seems we barely have enough space for vehicles to travel. But that said, I agree with the old rail option. And I'm just curious to know if eminent domain was considered in any way of implementation of the project. And then also lastly, additionally, I'm wondering if e-scooters or e-bikes would be allowed on the bike trail. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think those are all future topics.
Future questions.
Yeah.
Yes. Peter Booth.
Hey there. I just wondered a lot of first of all, just to be clear, I'm very supportive of this endeavor and hope that it plays out and happens. And a lot the biggest concern that I've heard that makes me kind of go, oh wait, maybe this is gonna be a problem, is the erosion and the river and the rail trail area. And I'm wondering if the planning commission or the consultants, is that news to you? Have you already considered that? Are you gonna have to kind of go back to square one now, or is that something you're aware of and you've kind of built that into your thinking?
That is something that, has that this is not news to us, erosion in general. We're aware of certain areas of erosion more than others. Getting more specific information, about some of the specific areas of erosion are helpful. But we are, in the process of getting all of this information in order to evaluate, and further define the alternatives. Is there a second question?
Did you have another question, Peter? Is that it?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to the room. There were some hands in the back. Yes, ma'am.
Chris
Hi.
Sims, I live down the road here on Route 15. I highly support a bike path, no matter where it is. I have ridden my bike to the Riverside area on Route 15. And I'm concerned about having a path there because when trucks go by, the wind is strong enough that a small child would get blown right over. So my kids have grown and gone. We had all these hopes that someday we'd be able to ride our bikes to Rawson all together, but no, that wasn't the case. So, going forward, wherever the path is, I highly support it, but I am worried about that, the wind and the proximity on Route 15, because as I understand it, our town doesn't have anything to say about what the speed limit is on Route 15 because it's not our road. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Other people in the room? Other people online?
Was there one in the front row?
Raising your hand.
Oh,
Jim.
didn't put my hand up. I knew you didn't want to call on me anyway, Susan, but
No, I'm happy to hear.
this is a project that's been dear to my heart for about 45 or more years. And I find that I think it's a good suggestion to you three people. Let's get smart and pick the path of least resistance with the greatest enlightenment. And I've sat in meetings where people who own the property that you're talking about have made statements which would tell me, just like Parizeau, go check the Parizeau case in Burlington that went all the way to the US Supreme Court. I don't think it's smart to pick things that you haven't already talked to the people about and gotten support for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also Yellow Book certified for takings, and I can say that it's not a good idea for us, if we want to get this done, to be fighting with landowners to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to be creative. Joe's a surveyor. He's worked for engineering firms, and he's identified a pretty significant problem because of the proximity of his house.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys can sit there and figure out how much it's going to cost us to move Joe's house back 20 feet. That's not a big number. You pick up the phone and this is the size of his house. This is what the new foundation is going to cost, and away we go. So there are solutions, but let me talk about speed, because I bring it up to Susan. I'm really concerned. I've seen kids killed. I've been hit by a car in Jericho myself. I've had kids clipped, and you listen to all this. The commuters that go through our town are not privileged people. The people who are driving an 80,000-pound commercial vehicle on a state highway are not privileged people. The 50 miles an hour is the starting point. I clocked a Jericho truck on Lee River at 56, loaded on his way to get a sandwich at Jericho Center. There's a really simple method of curing some of this. It's called photo radar. It's about as politically popular as gas in a phone booth, but it works really well. There's nothing like getting 3 tickets at the end of the day that puts your commercial driver's license in jeopardy. And all of a sudden, when you go to renew your license, all those fines, photo radar, perfect. HDMI, you break in the speed limit, you got the driver, you got the inspection sticker, you got the registration, you got the vehicle. You don't need a $115,000 a year armed guy pulling them over and spending 35 minutes to give them a ticket. They get it in the mail and they get the message really quickly. So I think that we can do some things, but I would suggest trying to go north of Raceway on the railroad right away. I'm 75 this year. And at 30, that would mean I'd be 105 before I think that you'd actually accomplish that objective. And I've heard Colleen Conti, I think she went to law school, so I wouldn't mess with her if I had a choice. But why can't we use traffic calming? If you take the end of Raceway and you fix it so that you can't get a tractor trailer truck around the corner, you do the same at the other end, and then you employ traffic calming along that road, which also includes dust control. You've already got 2 new bridges. And the last time I checked, those bridges are pretty solid, and the center of the concrete is a great counterweight. So that means I can drill through the beams and put extended little thingies out on the side, just like the painters do, and put the pathway on the outside edge of the bridge. And now we're talking, we're going to reduce the dust on Raceway. We're going to reduce the speed. We're going to make it very compatible. And then you talk to landowners who might be able to allow a T intersection to get over towards 15. Maybe the homeowners association would allow it to connect to the homeowners to the commercial district. But there's so many things.
Jim, you have to wrap it up.
Okay. Because we wouldn't want to get it right now. We'd rather spend another 30 years by missing the alignment at this point in time. So I've taken a more aggressive posture since I crossed 3/4 of a century. I'd like to be alive when we actually accomplish some of this stuff. I've seen more scoping studies. We've got $250,000 in the ground in Jericho Center and not a single improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. That was all very helpful. I will say about the photo tickets, they would be helpful to speak to your representatives at the state level because it is a state legislative issue.
One thing I'll respond to,
Jim,
since
actually, I have to move along because.
that speed limit stuff is very relevant and local residents can have an effect. I sat in the meeting, pointed out how the speed studies are done, and they dropped it to 25 miles an hour down here.
That sounds great.
VAOT did it. We do have influence over traffic studies.
Sure. Thank you.
Eric Allen. Hi.
Hi, I was just going to mention that there are some questions and comments in the chat. I don't know if somebody there is able to see those.
Okay, we will take a look at them. I don't think we will have time to go through them all this evening. Maybe if one of you guys could take a quick look while we maybe start focusing on wrapping up the conversation.
Sure.
And just
We'll
maybe
save the
let
chat
it
and
know. Yeah, we'll save the chat. If there's anything that you think is essential that we address tonight, since we have so many people here,
Let her see. So
that would be helpful.
if just pop it up so we can see what's there.
Sure.
Just the discussion.
Maybe it looks like basic input. People who, it's very efficient. Thank you very much for giving your input in the chat. I will say that the meeting is recorded by MMC TV and it'll be online for everyone to review. The presentation will be posted online for everyone to review. Heidi asked a question at the very beginning and she said, why did the previous project not continue, or why wasn't it successful? And I didn't really want to go into that because I didn't want to constrain people's imagination and ideas about what was determined at the time. But to maybe leave people with some thoughts so that you think about it and help us resolve some of the issues. So just so the previous study looked at along Route 15, the north side where most of the businesses are, the south side where most of the people live, and the off-road path. Based on the river, based on erosion, based on the cost of bridges over rivers, based on the fact that the town did not have a right of way, and there would have to be individual conversations with dozens of individual landowners, that study concluded that along Route 15 was more feasible. And because more of the people lived on the south side, if you just count the number of residences on the south side, there are more on that side. And you could connect schools without having to cross Route 15. So somebody asked at the very beginning about context. And one of the things that would be helpful is that there are different purposes. Transportation, I need to get to the market, I need to get to school, I need to get to my friend's house, versus, not even versus, and recreation. I want to go for a bike ride, I want to get exercise, I want it to be beautiful. And we're trying to understand if there have to be trade-offs, and there always has to be trade-offs because you don't have unlimited money. You don't own all the land, the community doesn't, we don't all own this land together. People live close to Route 15. We heard about that tonight. There's going to be trade-offs. And so understanding the priorities, if you had to choose, and eventually, Christine is right to point out that we all together as neighbors living together will eventually need to choose. Are we going to do nothing, which previous groups have decided it's too hard, it's too complicated, it's too expensive, too many differing opinions, too many, I want recreation, I want my kid to go to school. How do we reconcile those things? And so it's important to think that it's not going to be perfect, but just because it isn't perfect doesn't mean that we couldn't do something. And if people are really thinking hard about trade-offs and priorities, and maybe I'll give up this, but then we would get that. And maybe it won't be my lifetime, but it'll be the generation after me. And I wish it had happened when my kids were going to elementary school, but we can still try to make it better, to make it healthier, to make it safer. Just to address one last question. Currently, the state does control Route 15, and it's been discussed in Jericho before, not with this group, but we just know from all the stories, the town could decide to take over Route 15. And then the town would be responsible for all the expense and all of the maintenance, but then we could decide, and the town could say it's 35 miles an hour. Otherwise, we are negotiating with the state. But as Route 15 grows and there are more residences and more businesses, it'll be interesting to see what the thresholds are for the state, because why is it 35 here and it's 35 there? It's not 35 in the middle, is because it's mostly sparsely developed from a density point of view, but as it gets more and more full with neighborhoods and businesses, then the density would potentially influence V-Trans to look at the speed limit. We can also, I think, fight a lot harder with V-Trans to get the speed limit down, and some of the crossings, if there were medians in the middle of Route 15, that would contribute to a pedestrian crossing regardless of where the path is, and it would also help with speed limits. That's kind of some of the design features that they were talking about before. So it's a hard problem, and there's going to be trade-offs, and it's going to require a lot of consensus building and learning and being flexible in our minds about what's possible and what's important. So I think with that, if anybody have any other closing burning comments, because we have to move on.
Just like to say thank you to everybody for coming out tonight, for showing up online, and for sharing your input with us. Very helpful.
Thank
I
you
appreciate
very
it.
much. So the planning commission is going to continue our meeting. You're welcome to stay. It's really exciting. But if you all leave, we won't take it personally. Yes, and Linda Blosh, our town planner, if you think about it more and have more ideas, you would please contact her. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
When you're ready to. Try taking the mouse out again. I saw it so friendly last, and tried to think of that. That was something else that
But I don't know.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Got a lot of good input. Okay, be a time. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
So you're.
Okay. People, thank you so much for coming, but we have to keep going. Thank you.
You can stay. You can stay if you want to. Have fun.
And for people online, the planning commission is going to continue our administrative meeting. You're welcome to continue, and we won't take it personally. We decide to log off.
We will, but we just.
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to comment. I'm Dean Davis. I live on Raceway Road. The railroad bed comes through my property. From it, once you get past my house, the bed is non-existent. Between there and David Building's property, it got washed out. The river went into Peach Ambulance Lane.
Yep.
So there's nothing there.
It's gone. Yeah.
It's gone.
Yep.
You know, the river went probably 150 feet wide.
Right. Yeah, the rivers
Right.
do what rivers do. And we've all seen the 170
Well,
river at
and the-
117.
The thing about Bittersweet Lane up there is that when the DRB was talking about it, I mentioned, so I came to the meeting. So that bank's gonna wash out there. I've seen it go, and the developer said, oh. And the DRB didn't seem concerned about it, and 5 years later,
Times when you wish you weren't right. Right.
I knew it.
Yeah.
You live on the river long enough.
Yeah.
It's bank, water's coming into the bank, bank's off, and it just keeps. It's gone. I thought the nice alternative might be to cut into to Bittersweet Lane and go up the hill, but you got a wetland from Silly Hill Road. I don't know if you ever walked that path they're talking about.
Probably great in the wintertime when it's frozen.
Well, there's two culverts that are missing, because three actually, there's at the entrance to my property, there was a brook that goes down through between the Merchants Bank, the bottom of the hill there. There's a brook that follows down through there. That culvert was blown out in the 30s or 40s after the railroad was being built. There's two cast iron culverts that were along that walking trail. People just, kind of walk down through. And we used to snowmobile there in the 70s. So that snowmobile trail has been there since the 70s.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
I hope I
Nice
didn't
to meet
interrupt
you.
your meeting too.
No, we're good.
Not at all. Okay, not at all.
Okay, take it easy. Okay, so moving on to topic number 7, which is, we are hoping to finalize the March question of the month. So we talked about it at our last meeting. March meeting with David is about housing. So the questions are about housing, trying to keep them simple, engaging. Wendy gave some feedback through email. You guys gave some feedback on the meeting, and Linda crystallized that and is presenting a new alternative, which is kind of a tweak on what we looked at last time. Can you blow it up?
I was just gonna say, I think it needs to be bigger.
Heidi,
Yeah.
you're still with us, right?
I am still with you.
Great. And can you see what's on the screen, the question?
I can. It is small, but I'm looking to see if maybe I can adjust it.
Okay, no, we can make it
Zoom
bigger.
Here, what did it say? I gotta go to 200%. All right. How's that? Better?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right, so you want me to talk this
Yes,
through?
that would be
Okay, so as usual, instead of having one question of the month, we have multiple. And so the 3 that we're proposing based on feedback that we've already gotten, the first one would be what characteristics make a great residential area or neighborhood? And so this is an open-ended question trying to get at what people want in a neighborhood, what they think is desirable. Second question being, where do you see these characteristics in Jericho or in other places? So wanting to just not be focused on, you know, where we are here, but thinking about if you've been on vacation somewhere, or if you've seen another neighborhood in another town that you liked, you know, trying to get feedback more holistically. And then the third question is a multiple choice, but we decided that in order to get some prioritization for the question, we would potentially ask folks to pick the top 5 so that we would know of these options, which ones most people would see as the priorities. And so we tried to match up the options here with the way that things are regulated in our zoning in terms of the multi-unit houses, and then, you know, single unit homes of different sizes. We were wanting to give as options, and then I think you have to scroll. I think there's a couple more options. Or wait, is that it?
No, a couple more.
Okay. So going all the way from, you know, on the small end of the spectrum, like a tiny house, and then on the large end of the spectrum, a 15-unit or more home, either a condo or apartment house or something with significant number of units. And then we also had the option of other. We wanted to include it because we didn't want this list to be perceived as comprehensive, or if there's something that we didn't have here that comes to mind, we would welcome feedback on that.
I had looked through it and I agree with this question. I've made some other notes of my own and sort of was thinking about sending it over, but I said, I keep telling people don't send stuff around because it's in the record, blah, blah, blah. I'm putting on a sort of a combination of the planning commission and the affordable housing on this one, but for this particular question, I'm worried that if we,
I'm sorry, when you say this one, which one are you at?
which type of housing
Okay.
would you choose for Jericho, the
Thank
one that's
you.
on the screen?
Yep.
In asking that question, I worry that we're putting almost too much in one way in front of it, and I'm worried that it's also just completely unrelated to characteristics of a great neighborhood and so on. So what I would propose we do is just keep that, pick the 5 types with all the questions we have, but add on 2 questions around those. The first one being, how will your choices impact or promote affordable housing in Jericho? We might need to put a preamble that says affordable housing in Jericho is an issue that the planning commission is trying to address or trying to find solutions to. So when you pick these, how will that help? And for each of the 5 that you pick, the next question would be, what parts of Jericho are best suited for that kind of a housing subject? This just focuses everything on housing choices and where it should be, as opposed to the characteristics issues and so on. If we wanted to ask those characteristics, I would put in there, when we talk about the features, things like proximity of a number of neighbors, walkability, local dining, shopping, entertainment options, outdoor activities. Because if we don't tell people when we say characteristics, what do we mean by it, we're likely to get things that mirror what our first question answered, which is close to Burlington, close to sports, close to the school, blah, blah, blah. And I believe the purpose of this particular piece should be much more around the near circle that people live in, not the broad circle of Chittenden County or the entire town of Jericho. So that's some comments I had on that. I'll stop talking then.
I'm thinking.
I'm processing that. Me too.
I have a totally different question. So you put the 3rd question, what types of housing should Jericho encourage, pick the top 5? What is this gonna tell us? The answers? What are we gonna derive from those answers?
I believe I'm sorry to speak for you, but if you don't mind.
Go for it.
What we're getting for this is a sense of the community of when they think of housing in Jericho. What kind of housing are they really thinking? So when we're laying out the zoning and we talk about taking things on of 1/8 of an acre or smaller, that's going to be almost by definition in that small of a property. It's going to be that 800 to 1,200, maybe even under 800 square foot. So when people say, do they want that in?
Not 1/8 of an acre.
Or 1/16 of an acre, even nicer.
Yeah, 1/8 of an acre is, you can easily put a 16 to 1,800 square foot house with 1 car attached garage. No problem with it.
But you're cheap by gel with your neighbor.
It with 40% lot coverage, not including other impervious surfaces. With a like at least a 10-foot setback, that's fine.
You can do that.
That's way more space than you think it is.
So yes, Eric, you're speaking to what
That's what I mean.
my,
It's like, I
my
don't
thought
think
with this
I
question
don't
was
think
like,
those-
how can
those are
this could
that-
inform the
yeah.
zoning?
Yeah, and I don't believe that without pictures. That
I know, I
most
want-
people are seeing it the way that I see it, which is the reality of the amount of square footage on 1/8 of an acre or 1 acre or 1/4 acre spot and what lot coverage looks like. I don't know if this is an answerable question without at least an illustration.
Right.
I think
I'm a big fan of
struggle
illustrations
with
on
that.
something like that.
I struggle with
Yes.
that. That's what I mean. It's like, if you get answers to this question, I'm not sure you're getting quality answers. Other than people being like, oh gosh, I'm overwhelmed. There's 12 choices. And I just want more housing, but I'm not an architect or a planner and I don't know what that means and everybody's gonna not pick the big ones because they don't want the big flat roof apartment buildings that everyone keeps saying they're afraid of in Essex and Williston. And I don't know if that's gonna
I don't know
get
if
us
that's
any new
true.
information.
Could we do that with literally photographs of, here's a tiny house, here's a 8 to 12, here's.
I
which
looked
of these
into
would you-
that because that's what I wanted to do, but the platform that we use to collect the data does not allow for you to.
So that's back to my
Even
question.
if you have a tick box next.
Well, I think we should remember that it's not a survey for zoning.
Right.
It's a survey for the town plan, which is like more of like, the 10,000-foot view.
Okay.
And
Let me ask you a different question.
okay,
How many square feet is your house? How many square feet is your house? How many square feet is your house? How many square feet is your house?
2,200.
Okay, do you know?
Yeah.
Do you think everybody knows?
Yeah.
I think most people know, but that was why Linda added the number of bedrooms to try to put it. And I think the goal, when you said, what's the takeaway is not so that we have marching orders to go to eighth of an acre or anything like that. The goal is kind of, I think, to assess when the general community is aware that housing is a scarce resource. I think this will help us understand where the community thinks the need is that our community can fill. And also, you're right, what is the threshold? Like, what if we got back 99% of the answers was like 3 to 4 unit homes and below, then we know that we have our work cut out for us in terms of, then we would have a decision to make, I think, from a policy strategic point of view in the town plan about what kind of scale can we really advocate for in Riverside and other village centers. Whereas if most of the, if the threshold is really 15 and up and not even, then maybe there's a decent acceptance, I think we'll get a sense. And also, I think the fact that the question says encourage, maybe we should be more explicit, but I think there's a difference. Like, the market will take care of single family over 2,500 square feet. Why does Jericho need to encourage that? I don't know if people are that subtle, but that's kind of the word choice there to say, like, where should the town help fill the gap? And you're talking about affordable housing, but I also think we have to remember that we're starting off talking about housing, and affordable housing is a component, and it's a really important component. It's not the only component. Sabina, you know, when Sabina.
Is it appropriate for us to say what types of housing choices should Jericho encourage in the areas of designated growth, or, you know, like, or is that just getting us too far in the weeds? But I feel like it makes a difference when you're trying to make these choices.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Where would you put these in Jericho? If you said,
I don't want to ask people where to put it, because I feel like that's asking them to do our job or to be a planner, or most people don't really.
If we
like,
want
we've
to
heard-
encourage growth in certain spaces, then
Right.
that's where we need to know where what kinds of houses does the public think we should be encouraging? I don't know.
So what would you think about like an intro sentence to this third question that said something about, you know, Jericho is encouraging growth in the village center and villages, which is here to here to here, period, which we've said before in other questions. What types of housing choices should Jericho encourage in these areas? Or what
I
types
think we have to
of
address.
housing choices should Jericho's policies and investments encourage, so
Yes
that
to
it's
that.
less about
Yes to that.
the market
Yeah,
and
yes.
more about taking action?
I feel yes to what Sabina said, designated growth areas, and yes to what you just said, aligning investment around not only those growth areas, but also what do you see going in there that's being supported by that investment? Because again, arguably, the demand and the availability of houses over 2,500 square feet is continuing to.
It's not a shortage.
It is a shortage, but it's not, and it's still they're still being built. Nothing else is being built.
Right, they're able to overcome the cost
Correct.
and
Yes.
other obstacles.
Overcome is a great word.
Yeah.
They are able to overcome the obstacles and still make it happen without other investment or infrastructure and outside of designated growth areas.
Right, so if this question is more, not limited, but more defined by that it's asking about those areas.
Much more focused.
Focused, okay.
Is like, we want to focus our investment. Here's where we're going. Here's what the kind of things we want to put there. Once we go in those spaces with that infrastructure, then what kind of housing do you think we need to put there? That's a much more, I think, specific and navigable question. Then
Can you
what
rephrase that?
houses does Jericho need?
Can you rephrase that?
If you're saying to people, here are the designated growth areas, here are the types of investments that we can make in those growth areas. What kind of housing should go there to make these investments in these areas?
I don't think we should, I think it's too early to say these are the kinds of investments. But I think we can imply, or we can lead with investment. We can mention investment, but not necessarily commit.
But
Because it could be a lot of things, could be
Yes, no.
broadband, could be sidewalks,
absolutely,
could
no,
be.
you can, and you can say that. I think you can say that. I think that's the point. It's like we heard in our other questions of the month that people are in favor of infrastructure investment, which can look like many different things. So if in these areas we put some of those things, what kind of housing should we put there? That's, again, I look at this question and I'm like, what are we hoping to hear? I feel you're gonna get somebody saying like, don't build a 10-unit whatever in 10-acre zoning. Don't make it Cambridge, don't take away all the zoning, so anybody can just build whatever they want on any parcel. That's the first thing I would read from this. I'd be like, oh, I can, is this where we're going? You're gonna take away all the zoning, I can build anything in any part of town, sign me up.
Okay. So
I just feel
Run
it's
into a
too
problem
open-ended.
that When I talk to friends and neighbors about planning, most of them have no idea what zone they live in. Most of them have no idea where the village center is, what our designated village zones are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can expect them to know that when we say that, yeah, 15-unit house would be great next to the market. Probably would be. I don't think a lot of people in Jericho would object to it if that happened. But at the same time, they probably don't know it's already zoned for that. And that's why for my suggestion saying, where in Jericho do you think these would be appropriate? Yeah, they're likely to say areas that we now consider as growth centers. There's at least one or two people who I can imagine, because we've heard them in the planning commission before, say anywhere you damn well feel like building it.
Well, I think we can
But-
define the area and give people the landmarks, so to at
Yeah.
least get them thinking about the growth areas. So is everyone comfortable, and we haven't heard from Heidi, is everyone comfortable if we narrow this third question to the growth areas with a mention of investment and policies and zoning, something to that effect, so that should Jericho encourage, well, what the hell does that mean? Is actually, this is what that means. Is everybody comfortable with
As long
that?
as we're still saying pick the top five instead of.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because
And-
that's really the goal, is to, remember, the goal of question of the month also is not necessarily for statistical, it's really to feed into a more detailed conversation at the community forum and for other workshops and stuff that we're gonna dig into these topics. This is kind of like, where are the landmines? What do people feel? Taking the pulse, getting people aware that we're working on the town plan. That's really
Yeah.
the goal.
And that the town plan examines things like housing options in town.
Right. Okay, so Heidi, do you have any objection to limiting or focusing the third question on the growth areas? Kind of like in explaining that kind of smart growth choice, trying to keep it really short, not complicated, not wonky.
I don't have any objections, and I do think that I would mirror that folks really don't know what we mean by growth areas. They're not as familiar.
Right, so we'll give them a definition.
I would also get rid of the first two questions. This is a tough question for people to ask. And the first two questions don't really lead us into that.
You have to think about people who might answer might be, an 85-year-old woman or a 16-year-old kid, like they're engaging, they're asking you your opinion. What do you like? What makes your heart sing? What do you value? And those are important ways to like build a relationship, even though it's a survey. I mean, I don't want to be like all, touchy feely, but
it engages in what we're doing.
it's an invitation to think and to share. Sabine.
So if we've wrapped up our there's a public
Yes,
question.
yeah, I see.
Okay. Oh, well, it just became a chat, but.
Okay.
But the hand is up.
Okay.
I'd love to hear.
All right, so before we, I'm in
Before-
favor of keeping the first two questions. You think
if
they're
we're-
unnecessary.
I think they detract from the third question, but if we're going to say what characteristics, I think we should have some definitions of what we mean by characteristics. In other words, is a characteristic a sidewalk on my street?
Sure.
Is it a range, let's suggestion, as opposed to, it's important, a great residential neighborhood is close to Burlington, which is things we got on the first go around. I want to narrow it down from what's great about Jericho, what's great about your neighborhood, what works for you there. And that's going to be things like we have a neighborhood park. We've got open land that's owned by the town, or
We
it's,
do Friday night potlucks at our book club.
yes, things like that.
So
Directing into that.
I mean, I don't want to say physical characteristics or detailed or be specific or, think about the characteristics make a great residential neighborhood within, 2 or 3 houses of your house or of a house. I mean,
Not all of our people are going to live in a traditional neighborhood.
right.
Yeah, so to me, it's
how do
like-
you, without leading the witness,
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to offer suggestions, but I guess maybe, okay, so that's where I stand, that's where you stand. Other people, what do you guys think? Like open-ended or a little bit more
Guided.
helpful, guided,
Helpful guided is. Same thing.
and right.
I'm kind of on the fence. I generally like guided questions. Like to me, this would be an area for a multiple choice kind of thing and an other category. But I can see advantages to both. So I'm gonna be wimpy on this one.
Right. Any other?
I'm with Sabina.
On the fence?
I feel like it's so open-ended.
I guess.
I don't know how I would.
I guess having looked at all these now twice, I think if we can get, I know we want to get honest and open answers.
Right,
But,
what the other fill in the blank is for.
right.
Okay, so
But
can we,
I do think it helps people to have a guideline. you
so
know,
can
to
we
have-
brainstorm, 3, 5 options of what the multiple choice would be?
I had written some down about
Okay.
proximity of and number of neighbors. We might have some people say, ideal neighborhood for me, residential. I can't see my neighbors. I can't hear my neighbors. Others might want someone really close.
So-
Walkability. Can I get to the
I'm
local?
gonna
shop?
jump in if I can. I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Jump in.
Yeah, thanks. I guess I would just kind of go back again to, this was supposed to be our housing one. And and we were very clear. We're hearing from our neighbors, we're hearing from ourselves that we need to figure out how to get more housing. And so I guess I am back to thinking that we should focus just on housing and not characteristics of a neighborhood or residential area. Sorry.
No, I don't
That's
disagree.
okay.
Yeah, Heidi, I don't disagree with you because I was reading these questions and I'm thinking to myself, what are we gonna learn from these answers? What is our goal in asking these questions? I'm still not clear on that. I understand the size question conceptually. You want to see what, like you said, what people support, but then there's a big part of me that's like, everybody doesn't want it in their backyard. You're just gonna hear people want the same thing that they have. And they're afraid of it being more dense. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's for decades what all those town plans say. Hey, we should really branch out. Hey, we should really try something. And then it doesn't change. And then we get more and more affluent and,
Okay, I have a totally different idea. Brainstorm mode, if it's okay. And I'm sorry, because I can't see anybody's faces to know that I'm being rude by jumping in, so I apologize.
Do it. Pretend you're in the room, Heidi. You're in.
If we know what it is we have, Susan, just like you said earlier, there are all these trade-offs and nothing's going to be easy. So what if the question were something about like, if the goal is to increase the number of housing units in Jericho to make it more affordable to more people, which is what we're saying the goal is, what would you be willing, like on a scale to 1 to 5, how willing would you be to accept? And then put in how willing are you to accept multiple homes on the same, closer together near your house? Or how willing would you be to accept denser zoning for small apartment buildings closer to where there's already some development? Or, and this just ask like, get the sense of like, how willing are people to make those hard choices?
In their neighborhood.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well, what if it was only the third question and it was what types of housing choices should Jericho encourage in your immediate residential area or neighborhood? And then what area do you live in? Click as a multiple choice.
I really like that because again, with the not in my backyard. So in Shelburne, there's the big thing where the residents blocked the building of a multi-unit. I think it was gonna be like I honestly don't remember. It was gonna be like over 25 units.
That's right, downtown area, and they complained about it for those lights or something like that was what got it.
That's a different one. This is on Route 7. And it was in an area that backs up to a neighborhood, and the people in the neighborhood were just like completely against it because of their assumption that the people that would later be populating those units would
Be not their kind of people.
not their kind of people. And also, Railroad Circle is a great example. Some of those neighbors, now that they found out that the town bought it, are already pushing back that they don't want affordable housing right there on that lot.
I'm gonna, what, go ahead.
I just say I like Heidi's thought process.
Yeah, I was gonna have her repeat so I can.
But maybe while we try to figure that out, let's hear from Peter.
I think we lost Peter.
No.
Yeah. I think
Did he post something there?
Did he
for
in
us?
the chat?
In the chat.
Chat?
Yeah, he wrote something in the chat before he left, I thought.
Focusing square foot doesn't get what you want. What do towns see as a model for what direction you want Jericho to move in the next 50 years? So much more high level.
Yeah.
Which I don't disagree with. I just worry on that one, people are gonna say not Essex, not Williston. It's not helpful.
And that sort of just gets us to question number 1 in the existing, what characteristics? And that's basically the same thing. What model do you see for that?
Can you can one of you guys reach out to him tomorrow and just say, we got to you, but it was too late.
You left.
And thank you.
So.
All right, help me re-articulate this question.
What?
Heidi, can you say your thing again?
Oh, sure. Right. You think I remember? So the general is, how willing would you be, or how likely would you accept on a scale of 1 to 5? More housing closer to where you live. You could say that.
How
Right?
about?
How
which of-
likely would you be to accept 2-family homes or a small 3-unit building in close to where you live? Something like that.
You get it?
Yeah,
So the way we might say that is effectively of the 5 of the number we have, which of these would you consider appropriate for the neighborhood you live in now?
And what neighborhood is that?
And
right.
Because if we're letting people take the survey anonymously, which means when you register for joining Jericho, you are asked to give your residential area.
Yeah.
And we don't have that in this case. So it would have to be given voluntarily.
Well, we could have a drop down. I thought we talked about as question.
No, I'm
we
saying.
could ask them what street they live on, that would tell
I'm
us.
saying, we can put it in the question. It's just
Okay.
not built into our statistical analysis because they're anonymous.
What if we
Right, so we'd
didn't
have to build
lose
it
what you consider appropriate? I think that gives us like a threshold understanding, but that's so I'm wondering, like, do we have to lose which of the Jericho policies kind of flair? So could it be, instead of would you consider appropriate, which of the following would you consider, or would you support, or would you desire, or would you like, I don't know what the right word is.
I like support.
Would you
Yeah, I like
support,
support too.
would you support,
And then we
which
could
of
add,
the
we could add
following
a
would you
follow-up.
support Jericho policies and investments?
Leave it simple, then have a
Yeah, I don't know.
follow-on question of, for the other ones, where in Jericho would you like to see those? Not in my backyard,
But like we've
Over in
learned,
Sarah's backyard.
most people are not really that.
but right, but
Tuned in.
they will know by the elementary school, by the middle school, by Dessos, they'll know at least that part of it. And we can ask, just do it in that level. So, absolutely not on my house on Packer Road, but yeah, it'd be great by the high school or by the middle school. Anywhere but my backyard.
SJ has her hand up.
SJ, so quiet this whole time.
But before we go to that, so Heidi, are you okay if we don't do the scale 1 to 5 thing? We get it, what you're suggesting, but without having a scale.
Entirely. Yep.
Okay.
I'm totally
Because I
fine.
do want to stick with the whole word cloud thing, because I have this cool vision that by the end of June, we're gonna cover the town hall room here with all of our word clouds, and we'll be like, oh my God, it's so clear. SJ. It'll be like the art show for June.
We do need to get.
Yes, actually,
Alright.
it's almost 9 o'clock, you guys, and I really was hoping to nail this down tonight, because it's getting almost March, like the meeting is March 14th. We have to resolve it. So is everyone comfortable if we go an extra 10 minutes tonight?
Okay,
I need to add a question after this to let them select where they live, right?
right.
Okay.
Which of the following types of housing would you support more of
Yes.
in the
more.
area where you live now?
Some of them may not have any of it in their area, so.
Well, that's okay, because it would be more than 0. Right?
Yes, for the mathematically inclined.
Well, maybe that's confusing. You're right, more of.
Yeah, you know
does
what?
that
I think we had it in there and we took it out.
Okay,
because
yeah,
We
okay, take it
decided
out.
that
Yeah.
if there weren't any
Which
Then you
that
couldn't
would
have
you
more of it.
support
Yeah, I think that's
in
fine.
the area where you live now? Okay, in the immediate area where you
No,
live
no,
now?
just in the area where
Okay.
you live now.
Fine, okay, select your neighborhood, which should be the same neighborhoods as what's in the registration,
I
so
think-
Sabrina has those.
Okay,
So,
select
okay,
your
Mark,
neighborhood.
Mark said that he made a great point. Keep it simple.
Yep.
Mhm.
Ask, do you support more housing in the areas where there's already dense development?
You say, as I said, do you support more density? Where
More density? No, we could read.
We're
it.
taking out the characteristics.
And taking out the first two questions,
Yeah.
fine.
I love the questions. I just-
I think you're right, they'll probably just come up with similar
I was gonna
answers.
say, I think we're gonna hear more of the same,
Yeah.
love fest.
Which following types of housing would you support in the area where you live now? Period, end of story. We would actually have a question of the month, which is one question.
Well, no, we have.
No,
What's your
we-
neighborhood?
Yeah, but that's not really a question.
Neighborhoods set slash street slash landmarks, right? I think you could say that. I lived by the elementary school. Maybe people don't feel comfortable saying their street.
Well, no, it'll be
No,
a check,
no.
it'll be a multiple choice.
It will, there's like, Catherine had it set up so that there's like areas in the town and you click on that, so you live
You just pick,
in,
Okay.
yeah.
and that way it'll be consistent, so
As
that.
long as they know where that is.
It seems like
Yeah,
most people.
It seems like it works.
It's pretty
works,
clear,
yeah.
yeah. Period, end of story. Okay.
What was the comment that we had from Mark Shand, which I,
Okay.
Right, so-
I think we're getting at that. 'cause we're trying to
Yeah.
find out which residential areas.
All,
And I-
most of the town is residential, just because
Yeah.
10 acre zoning is still residential.
Yeah.
So I-
And that's a little bit more of a zoning question, whereas this is trying to be more
Correct.
at the strategy level.
But that
SJ,
also gets back to in basically not, there are different levels and when
Right.
most people are not on planning commission, think about residential areas. They're thinking the village centers,
Yeah.
Riverside,
and in
corners.
Packard, Great
Yeah.
Wall.
Yeah.
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 SJ, are you still with us?
I am. I'm not
Okay.
sure if you were gonna keep it to just select 5 or whatever, but I would recommend considering removing all of the options that are already permissible in all of Jericho. So that would include ADUs, that would include single family homes. You could keep duplexes on there, but I think that the state is gonna make that not an option for towns moving forward. But especially if you're going to narrow it down to just pick 5 or just pick 3 or whatever, then I would recommend getting rid of the stuff that's already permissible to force people to choose.
That's a
Great
good
point.
point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so take off all the singles and
Keep the
ADUs.
tiny houses though.
Yeah, keep tiny houses, because actually we do the zoning does have a minimum. And it's greater.
Keep on mobile.
Smallest single unit. Because I feel like, wouldn't the cottage court concept,
Yeah, all right, leave,
Okay.
yep, okay, leave that in, yep.
But we can take out accessory
Yeah,
dwelling
you
units
can
because
take
those
out
are allowed everywhere now.
Yeah, okay, so now that we have fewer choices, do we care about limiting the choices, or do we just say click
We could
which
just
of the
rank.
following?
Right?
Yeah, I like ranking.
Yeah, we can do a rank question. We could say.
But then you don't give the people the chance to not pick 15 and over.
Well, they will. They'll just get the, if one is most likely and. Yeah, 8 of them there. 8 is the worst.
I think some people are gonna be vehemently against some choices and be resentful that they can't say, give that a no way, no how, but I don't know. Yeah, they could type it in other.
Let them have a comment.
If you have that strong of a reaction.
Right, I would do the
Check
opposite.
all. I would
do
let them check
0,
as many.
no
as they
support, to 8 most supported, or 7 most supported. Or 8.
You want 8 to be most supported and 1 least supported?
0.
0. Can you do a 0? Rank? I don't know if you can rank something 0.
yeah.
I don't know, I'm just telling you what
I-
Susan
no.
said.
I don't think-
So
I think
we're not
Just
gonna
gonna,
get one.
you took that a comment, a space.
We're
for
not gonna
comments.
get a word, oh, we would get a word cloud, because the most supported one would be the biggest word.
Yeah, and then we could do a quick interpretation.
So just
Here's
add another area for just
none of the
general.
above,
Okay.
or I guess we can't really, can we say that? No, it doesn't get us what we're after.
No, let's not allow, let's just go with other, and then they can say other.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And then the other is open text, so that's when they can write whatever they want in there.
Okay,
Have open
Linda.
text For the ranking,
Well, I can make that a separate,
okay,
you know, I can make other its
Okay.
own question almost, and then
Yep.
it could, yeah,
that makes sense.
So other slash comments.
right, exactly.
Okay,
Okay.
So interesting. If it's in the area where you live now, what if somebody lives in the residential zone? So they're gonna rank it the way they're gonna rank it, but if you ask them about the village center, they would have a completely different answer. So should we have a second question that's like, which of the following types of housing would you support in the growth areas of town? Define the growth areas and let them rank it again and see how it's different. Do we really have dispersion, or do people just say anything, kind of anything anywhere? And that way it's a little bit giving people the option of saying like, yes, I want it and I want it where I live, or.
Sabina, how complex can we make the survey?
When you say complex,
Could we have it, please rank these on a scale of 1 to 8? As one column, and the next column, where is this most appropriate? And they would have to pick from village centers, rural areas and all of that.
I don't think we can do that kind of a question.
no, I don't think we can.
Yeah.
So it would have to be a separate column then of where would these be? Where would you like to see these open text?
Right, but so then that's asking somebody basically, whatever that is, 24 questions. So.
That is a little.
I think we can get at that by asking a second question, which is, which of the following types of housing would you support in the growth areas or in the village areas of Jericho? Define what they are from here to here to here to here.
Yep.
Please rank 8 to least and see what people say.
Yep.
I'm just gonna use that as a placeholder, and then same options.
Mhm.
And is it, would you want them ranked? Again?
I would just do the 5 to 9 to 15 plus. Because if I'm not mistaken, we are already allowing
Right,
duplexes
yes.
everywhere.
What
And I
Sarah
think
said.
up to 4plexes are allowed in every part of town already too.
Mm,
Or they're allowed in the
I
village.
think it's
center.
allowed everywhere. not 4.
We're not.
Yeah,
okay, so just,
yeah.
From
So
here
SJ
down.
is saying check all that apply is better than ranking. SJ, do you think that for both questions?
I really do.
I prefer a ranking on it so we can get. Because you check all that apply. We're not going to get a forced which ones are really popular and which ones are really unpopular. So.
okay. Okay. Good.
Linda, are you good with it?
I'm
Do you think it's good? Okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I
So
know
without
I'm switching,
objection,
but thank you.
Yeah.
we'll put it in Linda's hand to finalize the text. And Sabina to post it to the website approximately whenever you get around to it.
Mhm.
And then we'll promote it on Front Porch Forum. Maybe Linda, you can take the first shot at it. And
Yep.
then I'll do another one, and then I'll probably ask people in the email to do another one.
Yeah.
Yes.
We haven't, we sort of talked about the whole prize thing, but we never really resolved that. Are we gonna do that again? Is it too much of a pain? But we did say for the second question, so we have to honor that. And a lot of people did put their emails in.
Yeah,
So-
so I think I offered the money for it, so how much do I have to pay? Who do I pay to?
Well, we don't have a winner yet. We have to work that out, but, anyway, I just wanted to put that on the table that it is an unresolved
Well,
Yep.
the prize did not drive up the number of responses.
Which was disappointing.
Yep. So. What do you guys think? Do you want to do prize again, or, I mean, it's a good way to get email addresses, because then.
Did we say what the prize was gonna be?
No, we just said
No, I
a
feel like
prize.
if somebody told me I was gonna get 5 pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream versus something else, a gas card, right? It would be, if you know what it is, it's more motivating.
Did I offer?
So should we offer a prize or get a
Okay.
prize?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for.
I'll offer a 4-pack.
Not everybody drinks.
They have coffee,
Yeah,
a gift certificate.
but you have to pick one or the other, they're two separate businesses.
Right, and then we have to be fair to the
Did you
other
give the winner the
businesses.
option of which one?
I think we're out of time. We have to have no prize for this one.
Yeah.
I agree, but we still do need to
Exactly.
resolve the prize for last. one.
Right,
Yes.
and we can work on that offline. I just
Okay.
wanted to
Thank you for.
state for the
reminding us.
record that it hasn't been finished.
Right.
yet.
Good call, Sabina.
Right. I think I said to Sabina, just close your eyes and go like this.
I know. Sabina. Yeah, so anyway, I'm turfing it back to the group, but we'll get it done. And, yes, I will post it on whatever, our page, but I can put it in the next newsletter as well. That'll be another thing, and I think whatever we post going forward in terms of new questions, a sentence that's either at the beginning or the end should say, don't forget, you can see all the old results on this, on the page, because I think some people, I've gotten some feedback that they're wondering like,
For the results.
what do we do? What did you think?
Okay.
We have heard, like, why would I want to take another survey when you're not telling me what it was, so.
Can we post the survey results, or at least a link on Front Porch Forum? Say, here's where you go to find them.
Yeah, they're
At
all
least
on
the
the,
word cloud.
aren't they all on, they're already all up there.
They are, yeah.
On
The
the
word
town
clouds are.
plan.
Yeah, but did we advertise that on Front Porch Forum, that they can go there to find them?
We have.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, I don't know that it's been loud enough and prominent enough.
Right. Right, maybe I could do a post that's just on that,
Sure.
like next question coming, but soon.
Right,
Buy us time, like a day or two by doing a post maybe tomorrow, and here's all.
that would be
First two
interesting, that would be
questions.
interesting, because if we put a link in, you could, I can see then if we get more
More
traffic.
activity, yeah, okay.
And then we could just definitely say it ties into that post.
Okay, all right, so then I guess town meeting, staffing and materials, we can discuss in email. But basically,
I'm not here.
you're not here, we just need one,
Not.
you're not here. Okay, so I think we can figure out if there's gonna be any coverage, and if you have ideas of what we should share at the table. email
Content, either
Linda.
something to display or print materials that we can distribute. So think about
Right.
that.
If you have any ideas. Just for Nancy,
Printouts of the two earlier question sets. If you haven't filled one out, here's a paper copy, fill it out and give it back to us.
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay.
we were definitely
That's
gonna do the
fine.
housing one, I guess we could do the other two, yeah. that's
Yeah, I
a
think
good
we should
idea.
have all of them.
So, all right, so we're closing topic 8, going to topic 9. No, we closed topic 7, going to topic 8. So town meeting, we're gonna work on the details in email. If you have suggestions for materials, email Linda. Closing topic 8, going to topic 9. Which is any liaison updates that are essential at 9:15. I have no essential.
Nor do I.
We can wait till later for mine.
Okay, I have one, which is that we received from the Affordable Housing Committee a draft of housing targets
Fantastic.
in the form of a resolution. And so I drafted something based on like online research. What is the resolution? I gave it to SJ and they worked on it, and they did lots of detail, I'm sure you can verify, about the targets. And SJ will come back to us and present all the rationale about the targets. But we still need to massage the text So Wendy volunteered to work on it, Linda volunteered to work on it. And I wanted to know if there was one more person who wanted to work with them, basically an email on massaging the text to prepare it to come back to discussion with the planning commission on April 4th. So you basically have a couple weeks to work on it. And if nobody else wants to do it, that's fine. Wendy and Linda can do it and I can help.
So I can't, but I will go back. I know I promised you, but on Affordable Housing Committee, we are looking to put together a slideshow of what affordable housing looks like. So if you have any examples you can share with us to show people that it's not big, ugly, scary stuff, that would be helpful.
Okay.
If you need pictures of houses, I have lots of access to pictures of houses. Just
Affordable housing,
define for me what affordable housing is and I will bring you pictures.
affordable for someone making between 80 and 125% of area median income.
Yes.
So
give me
that's
those-
about $270,000 to $375,000.
Okay, in Jericho,
No, anywhere.
the same house costs different in different towns. In Jericho?
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me
Okay.
that number again.
I'd be careful about taking pictures of people's houses though, that we know.
It's,
You're just talking to them,
it's all in the, it's all
public information.
information.
Okay. I can see, it wouldn't be weird though to show a picture of somebody's house and be like, this is like great for a low income person. I don't know.
Well, that's why I'm fine if we go to. Here's what it looks like in Essex, here's what it looks like in Williston, here's what it looks like in Jericho, here's what it looks like in Underhill. This is, the idea is it's not going to look like half corners.
Sure.
It's not gonna look like Lang Farm.
Or it could,
It could, but that's not Jericho.
but I.
Jericho doesn't
for
want that.
examples,
Yeah.
And that would be fine.
Okay, does anybody want to help work on a resolution? No pressure. We just wanted to make sure that people felt like they had an opportunity to work on it. Okay,
The
so Linda,
resolution on affordable housing.
yeah, you already worked on it, so I think you've done your time. Okay, so Linda and Wendy will primarily work on it and bring it to us on April 4th, okay? For review and.
It's perfect the
discussion.
way it's written, by the way.
Okay, great. So yeah, maybe there's
No
not that much
changes
work.
needed.
Maybe there's not that much work to do. Okay, I think I'm gonna skip other business. And our next two meetings are March 14th, which is really, our next meeting is March 7th, which we canceled because it's town meeting. The Affordable Housing Committee invited us to their meeting on March 14th. We're attending their meeting. We have no other agenda. We're just attending their meeting. And then we are having a regular meeting on March 21st.
Yeah.
I'll be absent for both of those meetings. So SJ is running 314. Sarah's gonna run 321. And Linda has an agenda roughed out for both of those.
Yeah,
Well, for
so,
321.
the 314 one is primarily gonna be David presenting the housing portion of the town plan. And then for 321, the items that I had was a debrief from town meeting. Sarah, we were wondering if you'd want to give a Wisdom House update, because I guess you had been at a meeting where they were presenting something, and then we will need to be lobbing out April question of the month ideas. Are there any other items we should consider for that meeting? Because we probably could squeeze some other small item on. Okay, well, if you think of anything,
Well, there's that wellhead property question, but that's so far away. So by then,
321 is far away.
so it's 4 weeks.
And did we, okay,
So for context, the Jericho East Homeowners Association owns a wellhead down in the commercial district, and that's where all their water used to come from before they were on municipal water. And so they don't need it anymore, and it's a 4-acre parcel, and they are looking to sell it, and they're going to list it. And the question is the town interested in buying it? And what would be the use? And what would be the highest and best use? So that would be a great discussion for our group, but it may already be sold in 4 weeks because real estate moves fast.
so this select board would be interested to hear what the planning
Yeah, the
commission
planning commission
thinks
recommendations.
about that.
So, given the urgency, that might be something we just do an email chain around, of what are some ideas on how we might handle that? And present it, because you're right, that's gonna sell very quickly.
Yeah,
Zone commercial.
Yep.
Do anything you want, and that was,
well, you can't do anything
You can do-
because of the wellhead protections.
right, but you can do an awful lot
You can do an awful
on a
lot.
4 acre lot.
So we could contribute ideas to Linda and she could assemble kind of a summary. We could
Right.
call a special meeting.
I don't know if yeah, I'm not sure if we need a special meeting. I
We
like
just
the
need
idea of
to-
assembling ideas.
Yeah, just send your thoughts to me.
Okay.
And
I'll
I am
collect.
going to recuse myself from the conversation. Because if the town decides to offer on the property, I may represent the town. So that would be a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Where, can you just
Okay.
say what's the map address? So again, I can look at it on the.
I can email it to us.
Okay.
It's behind the old, the Reliant barn, isn't it?
Yeah, it's down at the end of where South Main Street kind of ends. Just past the storage units, where that barn is, where it's compost or whatever. It's just past that, if the road kind of kept going.
Yeah, you got paved road right there to
Okay, so
Or
we'll,
North Main Street,
so we'll email Linda our ideas for uses of the property.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
it. Is, Linda, you will be collating those,
Mm-hmm.
and we're presenting it as the planning commission suggested, so we should all approve. Yeah, I think that's great. That's important for us to input on that.
and keep it simple. And maybe it is a good idea in your opinion, and maybe it's not.
Okay, so then we're not having an executive session this evening. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Sarah, motion to adjourn, second.
Second.
Eric. Second, all of in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Heidi.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay,
all.
Can we look at the chat before you sign off there? Oh, good night, everybody. Thank you. Was
I
there
was
more
just
chat?
closing my screen. I mean, I don't.
3 new messages.
I've been up for a long time.
Yeah.
Are there 3 new messages? Thank you. Have a good evening. That question would get great consensus.
That was the one about, I think he was responding there specifically to what would be. Yeah,
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is the problem with this.
Yeah,
method
it's
of
not in real
communication.
time.
It's not.
So you don't know the context of everything.
Yeah.
Right.
so you have to have it up and running, talking.
But we don't.
And
That's not
we-
how we've ever run our
Right,
meetings.
right. We did that earlier for the big meeting,
Are we
but you're
adjourned?
right, I should have not.
Yes, we are adjourned.
Well, I haven't stopped, so I will hit.